Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to the Facebook Live Q&A on this beautiful day. It's spring, April 7th, 2021. Good evening. Um, I'm joined today by our normal panel, and we do have a new guest speaker as well. Um, so I'll go through brief introductions. Hello, everyone. I have April, who is our psychic on the panel, um, and a spiritual teacher. Good evening, April. We have Caesar, who is a channel and a spiritual teacher. Good evening, Caesar, for making it on time. Thank you. And then we have our one and only Qigong teacher on the panel. Welcome, Kelly. We have our incredible Eileen, as always. And I was kind of thinking that Eileen wouldn't be able to make it today, and she was. So thank you. I'm grateful for it, Eileen. And of course, we are joined by Jillian. And I'm going to read Jillian's bio. Uh, Jillian is a soul contract reading practitioner. She's got the certification and a manifestation and life coach. So welcome, Jillian, to the panel. So last week, when we were doing the Facebook Live Q&A, there were a series of questions that we did not get a chance to answer. I did grab it out of the Zoom recording. And I will speak to this one because I think quite a few members are suffering through this, taking care of an older parent, whether it's an in-law or a mother, or this can also happen with children, right? Like if you have a autistic kid or an ADD kid, then it's the same kind of why is this person suffering? So the question that Juliet had asked is, my mom has advanced dementia and I see that she's suffering. It is very painful to watch. Any advice on how I can help her to be more at peace, and me as well? April, I know you answered the question online, so I'll let you start.
Yeah, she addressed the question to me, so I tried to answer it. My initial thought was to not take on mom's suffering. Mom's suffering is unfortunately mom's suffering, and well, it is painful to watch. I trying to figure out how to explain this without it seeming insensitive. And I've seen Eckhart explain this too, where when you start to learn to take on the spiritual perspective, not the human perspective, but the spiritual perspective, then you start to see things in a different way. And you realize that there is, one, there's a reason for this person's suffering. And two, that it's not your suffering. And then you also, it's kind of like when Eckhart says, well, they'll eventually, their suffering will lead to enlightenment, and it might lead them to them going to jail. But even if that's what it takes, then that in itself will be their enlightenment. That will be the suffering, the enough of suffering that will wake them up. So it's kind of that mentality where I can see somebody else suffering, but I don't take it on. And it's not that I don't care or I don't have compassion, but at the same time, I understand that this is their process. This is their evolution. This is their journey. And I can appreciate that journey without carrying the pain within myself. So that was one of my aspects. That was one of the reasons why I gave her that answer. The other thing was not to just not take on mom's pain, but with mom having dementia, if she could find some activities that she found that mom did like, whether it was repeating the same stories or repeating the same memories, even if it was repetitive. Maybe it's just massaging mom's feet, whatever that she can do to give mom a little more peace. So those were my initial ideas, and then I'll let the panel expand. Since I already answered, I'll let them expand on it.
Any other insights? Just that?
I think the way that I explain this to myself is because I have children and I have so many children, and I really think that my soul plan, I signed up for a giant lesson. When you have children, I think you sign up for a giant lesson. You really do. There are no greater teachers in this world to me than children, right? And sometimes I think some of the biggest spiritual teachers, I think maybe you don't have children. That's why you get to sit all day and meditate, because you don't have children. But then Deepak has children, Wayne Dyer had children. And that is my kids, through causing me emotional pain. Seriously, causing me emotional pain as their mother, because I care for them so much, because my goal, my mission, which is what she's doing with mom, is trying to save them. I'm trying to save them. I'm trying to save them from pain. I'm trying to save them from discomfort, from emotional torture, from being broke, from their car breaking down. I am trying to save them. And because I'm trying to save them, I'm emotionally invested. And when I'm emotionally invested and they fall, I fall. But if I truly love them as Source loves us, or I prefer to use the word God, then I will allow them to fall. Because in that is their only true growth. And that's my deeper insight into this, is that you cannot be attached to it, nor can you save them. And by doing so, you're not really serving them. God will not really serve us if he picks us up and just floats us along life gently. We will never learn, we will never grow, we will never evolve.
Thank you, April. So the dementia is actually, that soul chose that path to withdraw from their physical form. If it's a mother, I'm assuming it's an older person. So slowly that disease is going, what Eckhart says is all these diseases, Alzheimer's, dementia, is like the soul withdrawing from the form and choosing that to be their path, right, of dissolution. That slowly, like, there'll be more degeneration of the brain power, and slowly the consciousness will withdraw, right?
I think too with that is a lot of people, I don't think it's 100% the case, but I think a lot of people with this Alzheimer's dementia, as you're saying, withdrawing, it is a way, like if they've had a very troubled past or a lot of trauma, these are the two diseases that will come in. Because they're choosing to forget. And I think that choosing to forget helps them to get into that space of presence. They only have themselves in that current memory, right? Yeah.
Right. Beautiful. Thank you. Kelly, did you want to speak to Juliet's question? I think it's quite a few people are taking care of their parents, so I wanted to dig a little deeper into this question.
Sure.
Thank you.
Having spent most of the last 3 years taking care of my dad, although he's not dealing with Alzheimer's or dementia. After his car accident, there was a lot of cognitive recalibration going on. First off, short answer is music and physical contact. I know that there are studies that have been done with music and people dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia where there's a great, beautiful video of of a gentleman who was an old pianist, and nobody knew it until this old piano got donated to this care home. And he walked into the room the next day and he sat down and he played like 4 concertos, and everyone's like, what? So, you know, music and physical contact. I know from my grandparents, after my grandma on my mom's side had her strokes, and anytime I'd go and visit her, she would always respond to me massaging her hands and stroking her hair. So, you know, that's something to try. I agree completely with, you know, everything that April has said. And, you know, I always like to look at these things from the soul contract perspective, because everyone has chosen to seed their reality and their life with potential events and potential experiences to maximize their own effect of growth on themselves, as well as everyone around them that they are connected to, especially family. And dealing with this kind of situation, working through this type of journey with someone who is choosing to forget themselves and or experience the disconnect of dementia and Alzheimer's, and continually relive the past, is also about people getting caught in the global illusion, the global disconnect from source, and the deeper malaise or the deeper imbalance and the deeper disconnect that we are all working at consciously reversing. And this is also, you know, there are, you know, you get into the environmental aspects of why there is a rise, such a dramatic rise in Alzheimer's and dementia. That's something that I looked at a fair bit in my 30 years as a policy analyst, working on environmental issues and pollution issues. And again, you know, anything that's external in the world is also a reflection of the internal that is going on, the internal journey. So, you know, whether or not a person's body has been polluted by chemicals and is causing them to journey through Alzheimer's and or dementia as a result of the nervous system being worn out and blocked by a lot of chemicals, or whether or not it's just simple stress and simple weight of life wearing them down energetically, you know, in their nervous system, it's sort of the same thing, because the tension in the body from either dealing with chemical pollutants in the body or emotional pollutants in the nervous system will over time cause the same thing to happen. That weight on the nervous system, the energetic weight of the body trying to process and heal itself and not having the energy reserves to do so, will quite often cause that type of disconnect and disassociation later on in life. And you know, there's studies that I wish I, you know, could do right now, even though there were, you know, we're in this sort of COVID era. And because I've seen interviews with masters in China where they've taught qigong to people suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's and schizophrenia and bipolar issues, and they've had great success. You know, it's sort of one of those things where, you know, it takes a lot of time depending on the stages that someone is at. But again, it's movement. It's something physical. It helps, you know, ground a person's energy. It helps bring them back to their physical present moment. And, you know, it's always hard watching. It's always hard watching someone that you love go through a difficult time and go through something as stressful as being either hurt or suffering mentally. You know, it's really, really, really difficult, especially when they're family. Even if you can look at them from, you know, that soul contact perspective and that space of observation and being present and understanding that this is the choice that they've made, it is still very difficult to not feel for them and to not want them to be better and not want, you know, it's just like, because when you go inside and you're present and you learn how to be spiritually present, your appreciation, your gratitude for everyone really, really, really changes. And the love that you can feel for people gets so much deeper. And the gratitude that you have for the experience of being able to just share space with them deepens equally. So watching someone suffer, even at a distance, becomes really, really hard. So I can totally empathize with the situation. And, you know, again, it's like those lessons that we've chosen to be a part of, to have in our lives, is what this is all about. And it's about, you know, what choice are you making? What choice are you making with your mind, with your feelings, and with your heart? And are you staying open, or are you being, you know, judgmental of yourself? You know, don't beat yourself up for having to deal with this, or, you know, feeling bad for the other person, because that's just shows that you care and that you are capable of loving a person no matter how much they are hurting or suffering. My 2 cents.
Thank you, Kelly. And I think that's what Eckhart is getting us out of, is the conditioned patterns. That our conditioned pattern would be is to get attached to their suffering and then start a narrative of this should not be. This is what April also told Juliet online, right? Don't get attached to that she should not suffer, or that I need to suffer along with her, right? While my mom is suffering, so I need to, or you saying my dad is suffering, so I need to suffer almost as much. Why am I happy? Why do I have a smile on my when my dad is suffering or my child is suffering, right? Why do I have this huge smile? But the joy of being is the joy of being conscious. So we need to experience that joy so that that flows into the other human being. So that's the detachment, right? It may sound like, just like April says, it may sound insensitive that we have to detach, that their suffering is their choice. That soul chose to suffer in the manner that they are suffering. But
Well, one way to look at detachment actually is when you are actually detached in observation, you are actually creating more space for the other person. You're actually supporting them even more, because you're actually creating a supportive, energetic environment emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So you're not actually being cold-hearted. You're actually being very, very, very
connected.
hearted,
Mhm.
because you're actually creating a space for them to, without judgment, for them to just be.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. So that would be another pointer, is not to get involved in the conditioned pattern of society. Caesar, did you want to say something about Juliet's question? I thought it was a beautiful question.
It is. I've experienced this with a few family members, my grandparents, and I could tell you in a strange way that that state that your mother is um, in which she dwells is somewhat of a state that I'm trying to get to in almost a full-time sense, meaning not so much thinking. I'm not sure. I didn't really see the suffering with my grandparents, who two had dementia and two had Alzheimer's, and they were both very similar um, with respects to the function of the mind. And once I realized that it was me doing the suffering for them, my energy actually influenced them to suffer as well. So you had stated in your question something to the fact that how, what advice can we give to help lessen your mother's suffering and yours as well? Well, I think the energy, if we talk about energy, April and Kelly both touched on it, is that change the perspective in which you look at her state. Meaning, is there really suffering going on? First of all, we have a lot to be grateful for. She could be in pain, suffering physically from cancer or something to that nature. So I think if you bring presence into the situation and, you know, maybe even a reminder, Mom, we're here now. And that is a beautiful thing. That is inspiration. That will create joy and gratitude and raise the vibration between the both of you and actually lessen the suffering. That's what we're here to do in this lifetime, is help lessen the suffering of others. And in this case, the less you suffer, Jillian, the less Mom will suffer as well. If Mom couldn't hear you in the house, but you're in the other room feeling sad, I promise you Mom feels that too. And that's not what we want for her. So you can help influence the energy in the house with her. And that is just to honor the present moment. Be grateful that you still get to spend this time with her. I find in talking to many people throughout the week for the past few years and dealing with a lot of people who are living with parents with dementia, once they realize that I can't speak on your mother, but the majority of the time, the people with dementia are actually not suffering. It is sad to watch them because they're not up to the capability of once we, knew them at one time. But if you pay attention to that detail, you'll see. Is your mom physically suffering, Jillian? Can you give me a nod, yes or no?
It's not Jillian,
Not
it's
me.
Juliet. It's Juliet.
Oh, okay.
There was somebody online, Juliet.
Okay, Julian. Apologies. Very much confusion there. Okay. So nevertheless, try to bring presence into the situation. Just by honoring, maybe remind yourself and your mother that you are together here now. And that is a beautiful thing. That's there's so much in that to be grateful for, and just try to be happy. Honor this. I mean, sounds again kind of cruel, but honor the situation, that you at least get to spend this time with her. And the more you can lessen your own suffering, just by pure acceptance, that will also help lessen the suffering with your mother. And that's the short end of it. But
Thank you, Caesar.
yes.
I love the pointer where you said that vibrationally, her mother is going, if she feels sadness, then vibrationally, she's bringing her frequency down. So her mother is going to experience it, and her mother's frequency is going to go down, which is not actually beneficial to somebody wanting to recover from any kind of disease state. So the more in presence Juliet is, the more higher her vibrational frequency, which is in loving kindness, compassion, and gratitude.
Yes, because I'm not sure they know, having dementia, that they're actually suffering. I know watching my mother start to experience near her on days when she passed from brain cancer, but she did start to experience the early stages and mid stages of dementia. And I know it was somewhat frustrating to her. But it was those around her who would look at her with a sad face and say, "Oh, Mom," but really she didn't know it. Once it gets to a certain point, there is no more of that remembrance of the past. That's why I stated that we all try to almost achieve that state to some degree by letting the past go. And when them feelings come, it's okay, but let them go. In one door, out the other. But yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Caesar. Jillian, did you want to say something about this question? Thank you.
I agree with a lot of what was said, especially with the soul contract aspect of it. But and also another way to look at it is what we experience in our reality is a reflection of us on the inside. So potentially even working on healing yourself a little bit could help in manifesting in some positive changes with your mother. Ho'oponopono is a great practice to try to heal the self, saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. So that can be a powerful change as well.
Thank you so much, Jillian. Beautiful. I guess that's a good pointer, right? That maybe we don't forgive. There's some parts of our relationship that has not healed with the mother, and now we are feeling guilty. So forgive ourselves that there is some unfinished business. Now she has dementia, so I can't really communicate my unfinished business with her. So I'm feeling the guilt. So forgive yourself, right? Beautiful, Jillian. Thank you. Eileen, did you want to say something to Juliet on her question?
Sorry. At the beginning, although I think it came up probably when Caesar was talking, but when I first read the question before we started, I was thinking that the suffering is really the daughters. I don't know anybody who has dementia or Alzheimer's, but I do know that the suffering that the daughter's feeling isn't her mom's. It's definitely her own. And so she has to stop. I think it was Juliet. She has to stop resisting. And again, being accepting of her mom's current state, and that will give mom space and probably help the situation just by helping herself. But I do believe that was already shared. And another word that came up for me too when Caesar was talking was expectations. He didn't actually say the word expectations, but he was explaining how, she's going into the situation, probably with an idea in her mind of what she wants to happen or what should happen. And so it's definitely important that those expectations be dropped.
Thank you, Eileen. Expectation is, what does he say? Eckhart says that's the gap, right, between reality and what is, the pain gap. And that's where we are causing ourselves pain.
Exactly.
So thank you so much for that pointer. So there's a question, Songvit says being schizophrenic. Did you want to read it, Eileen? You're in the middle of.
No, I had to get to the unmute button because it's on the other screen. Being schizophrenic, I've had challenges being in the now. My suffering is my mental illness, but I don't let my mental illness define who I know deep inside. Sometimes I'm afraid when I try to have acceptance between the now and my internal thoughts of voices. Any advice on how not to have fear of letting the internal voices take over, but find light to go to acceptance, to stop resisting?
Thank you, Eileen. Caesar, did you want to start on that question?
Sure. Remind yourself to be the observer. Again, when the thoughts come, you can invite them. That's normal because they will come. And leave the back door and allow them to leave as quick as they came. The more you give attention to a thought, the more the thought grows. So it starts off as a little mustard seed for a split second. When you turn your attention to the thought gets a little bigger. So what you feed grows, and you grow it by giving it your attention. So to not let the thought take over and consume you, because eventually it will, the more attention you give the thought, the more you are feeding it and growing it. And at some point, the thought will eventually consume you and take over, and you become the thought. That's the conniving, deceptive way of the ego or conditioned mind. So just remember to be the observer of the thought. Simply watch the thought and allow it to come and allow it to leave in short terms.
it's not something that I understand, the mental disease, being schizophrenic. So somebody, I think April will be able to explain it. I don't know in that state if even they will be able to follow their thought or bring their attention back, right? If I already have a mental illness where all these voices are taking me in different directions, then will I be able to actually bring myself into the present moment? I think something tactical, like get massages, get a lot of massages that put you in the present moment, right? Use therapy that is more tactical will bring you into the present moment. Kelly has Qigong classes. You can sign up for the Qigong classes. Take a few classes. It's inexpensive. It's like $10 a class or something, right, Kelly? And pay for the classes and see if that tactic, like you're inhabiting your body. So if that brings the level of the voices down. Jillian, did you want to speak to the question that's being asked by Sangat? Thank you.
I also don't know a whole lot about schizophrenia, but some thoughts that came to mind, particularly with the fear aspect of it. Fear perpetuates fear. If you're thinking that you're afraid of letting those voices in, then it's going to be a fearful negative experience. So maybe switching that mindset, and rather than being fearful of it, think of it as maybe there's something that you can learn from the situation. Maybe some of those voices are trying to reach out to you or teach you something. I don't know, again, a lot about this, but it could be. And maybe kind of flip it on its head and look at it from a different perspective could be helpful. And I also agree with what Caesar was saying about observing your thoughts. I think that can be really powerful, kind of let them in and then let them go.
Thank you. Thank you, Jillian. April, I'll let you take over. I know you may have worked with people.
Yeah. So in my day job, I am a professional mental health and substance abuse counselor. So we do know about schizophrenia, and I have actually worked with people with this. I've actually worked with some people, a couple of people with what we call dissociative disorder, where they get multiple personalities. That is a real thing. And I've had a couple clients with multiple personalities. Now, schizophrenia is not multiple personalities. It is similar as far as what's happening is the mind is fragmented. It is compartmentalized. It's broken up instead of whole. And I don't even know if normal people, if we're whole and integrated, but but so that's one light, shed some light on it here. I don't know that even us so-called normal people are necessarily all whole and integrated. Okay. So what's happening is in the actual structures of the brain, there's some alterations in the actual structures of the brain. And therefore, these people hear voices. Now, the voices can be, they can be strong, they can be weak. The concern comes in is when people who have schizophrenia, when they have voices that are on, there's different types. Okay, so I'm not going to get into all there's so many different types. When people who have this disorder, when it's on the paranoia side, and when it's on the paranoia side and it's, the voices actually tell them to go do something that's violent in nature. But that's when it's on the paranoia side. So they have this overall fear that things are going to happen to them and they need to protect themselves. So the voices tell them to protect themselves, or that people are after them or somebody's going to hurt them. Okay, that's when we get into the parts where it gets concerning. So one of the things that I got to put my grandma glasses on, guys. There's a spot in here. So they are going to have challenges of being in the now because of the different voices that are coming in. And if the voices are scared, afraid. So in that being afraid, and when we go down here and it says how to not have the fear. So this is where I'm going to address the fear and bringing in the light. So the key is the awareness of the voices, being aware of the voices and also being aware. It's almost kind of the same practice where I'm trying to, I'm getting too much information at once coming down to try to answer this. So it's kind of like my phrase that I tell people is, I can imagine purple elephants all day. I can imagine them. Can you imagine an elephant? It's gray, it's got big ears, right? Now make it purple. Does that make them real? I can imagine it. I can imagine a blue cat too. Does that make them real? So just because you can imagine it doesn't make it real. And the same theory applies to this. So you have many thoughts, you have many voices coming in, but stepping back, as they said earlier, and being the observer and noticing that just because I'm having this thought doesn't mean that it's necessarily real, and that I can just let it be. I can just let it flow. I don't have to actually act on it. Remove the fear and replace the fear with acceptance of, oh, here's that voice again. Hi, how are you doing? You know what? You can just move on, just mosey on your way. Nice thought, thank you. And then go back to presence. And the funny thing is, I just listened to a teacher who just explained schizophrenia, that Bentatino that I mentioned. And he mentioned what you did, Poonam, and he said, and it makes me think of Kelly and the rubber band on the arm, snapping the rubber band on that, of bringing them into physical presence. That is one way, reminding yourself. So that is a practice that they could do, is anything that would bring you into the physical presence, but allowing those thoughts to be and not fight them, but become aware of them and then just accept them like, oh, here you are again. Okay. And then allowing that to flow. The funny thing is, as Bentatino just mentioned this, he said, these souls choose to come in here, which Kelly might be able to expand on this a little more if he wants. And what it is that they're coming into third dimension with fourth and fifth dimension energy, and it's not together. It's not, I'm missing the word, that it's not aligned. And that's what's actually happening, is they're coming in at a much higher frequency, so they're fragmented. And again, so the alignment practice, the integrating the body practice, the energy practice, presence power, all of those are going to help you, but mostly be gentle with yourself, practice acceptance and love, and allowing and flow, mostly flow. Don't get stuck in any one fearful space. Okay. So, but that is what schizophrenia is. It is, it's actually biologically, we can see it in the brain MRIs, and it is actual real voices, not your own, speaking to you, is what it is.
Thank you so much for explaining that, April. Grateful for it. One of the things, now that you've explained the symptoms, what I would, and this is something that I actually want to do with the Facebook group, is start a guide. So, and how do we enhance our spiritual practice, right? So start a guide, but based on functional medicine and integrative medicine, because fear implies that we are more in our amphibian brain, right? We are not, so whatever they call the neocortex is what is actually going to let our left brain bring consciousness in, right? Left side of the brain is what actually allows us, that's the brain that allows us to be creative. The dance, the creativity of being in dance, music,
Yeah,
are
it's
all,
the amygdala. And also a little side note, the amygdala, if you actually stand up and you move forward and you look, that actually calms the amygdala down. That's another thing they could do. Literally get up and walk forward and the eyes move. Yeah.
thank you. Thank you so much. So, and I follow medical medium, Anthony William. There's something about the phrenic nerve, right? I think Kelly has 3 or 4 months, maybe in December timeframe, Kelly brought up adaptogens, right? Drinking mushroom, lemon balm. There's something called adaptogens that you can take and take organic elements, right? Uh, Adaptogens can help calm the phrenic nerve. So you're not into that reptilian brain. You're more into, now you're trying to raise your consciousness, right? Because I don't even think if you're hearing so many voices, and I know Eckhart's, he has stopped talking about like directly saying this is my stepmother, right? But long time back, he did. So when his father broke up with his mother, he married another woman who was schizophrenic, right? To the point that she would blame Eckhart as well, that he's come to harm her, right? She couldn't even experience Eckhart's energy. Um, Kelly, I'll give you the, I'll stop speaking and you can talk about all the things that you're suggesting in a minute, right? So they are adaptogens. There is the other thing about misfiring neurons and misfiring brain cells, right, is more because for generations, and this is for everyone, right? If you think that you have a brain fog, so when I wake up, right now doing all the supplements, when I wake up, I'm directly like pure presence. I can see everything. There is no more brain fog. Like I don't wake up, where is my, where are my house shoes? There's nothing. I wake up and I'm there, right? Like I've woken up and there's lucidity. Like I can see everything as presence, it's right there. But there has been a lot of cleansing, right? Like I've done a lot of the heavy metal detox for the past 6-8 months. I've done a lot of the Kelly's talking about ashwagandha. I take ashwagandha every day. I take lemon balm every day, right? So there's a lot of the nerve, how the phrenic nerve works, right? I'm very calm, no matter the fact that for 8-9 hours I've had a full-time job and I've worked a full-time job and now I'm here, right? So even during working with my full-time job, I'm very calm. So I'll give it to Kelly, but what I would say is I'll put medical medium information onto that guide probably towards the weekend. I would strongly recommend looking up a good functional medicine doctor. Gracie was going to help me with that. Kind of like give you all a way to find a good integrative health or functional medicine doctor, because they can do your how much heavy metals are in your body, right? What is the toxicity in your body? How is your adrenal glands working, right? All that can be measured, and that's what the functional medicine doctor can do for you. So I would strongly recommend use that path so that that assists the diet and nutrition and supplements, and this is all natural, helps you in your practice. And then maybe some of those voices become less. Instead of 40 voices, you begin to hear 30 voices and then 20, however that may be. Kelly, go ahead. Thank you. Thank you, April.
Thank you, Poonam. Great sharing, everyone. One of my best friends in university was schizophrenic, and she would have her good days and her bad days. Bad days, especially when she, felt better and decided that she didn't need her meds anymore. And the thing that she found that helped the most was physical activity and diet. And she's one of the main reasons why I started looking at adaptogens. And the ones that I listed, so really, really good adaptogens that I've used are maca, MACA, ashwagandha, rhodiola, and Siberian ginseng. Siberian ginseng I have used, gosh, I don't know, for 20 years. Maca and ashwagandha sort of more the last 5 or 6 years. Rhodiola, every once in a while, it's, I rotate things through my system, but Siberian ginseng is pretty much a main substantial constant. And what adaptogens do is they provide elements and minerals for your nervous system to deal with stress. They affect your adrenal glands and your kidneys and the way that your adrenal glands respond to stress. They mitigate or sort of buffer and give your body an ability to handle stress a little bit better. They also give a boost of energy and also help your energy balance out. I know that maca and ashwagandha are both really good at helping balance out the hormones as well. In like both male and female estrogen and testosterone, they're both used for that, and they're both really, really, really good at helping reduce cortisol levels in the body, so that the stress in the body and stress in the liver is a lot less, so that your body can actually process out the toxins caused by stress. So your nervous system is dealing with less buildup from previous stress, never mind the immediate stress of having to deal with stress. So the conversations I used to have with my friend Michelle in university, and I was studying psychology in university at the time, and it was sort of one of those profound learning experiences of having someone with a real physical chemical imbalance who was very aware of their condition, who wanted to be better, who was actively engaged in researching, and we'd research stuff together. She'd get an idea, sometimes she'd get almost manic and like she, feel really inspired, and like instead of stressed out, she had like super inspired and super creative, and be able to like create these links and these understandings that were really, really, really profound. April, I really liked what you said about the fourth and fifth dimensional aspects of schizophrenia. There's a lot of energetic templates and frameworks that we generally sort of don't want to be aware of because they'll burst our bubble of 3D reality. And this is one of the things where working with Michelle really gave me a perspective on how someone saw things beyond just 3D reality, how they actually felt them, and would have conversations. Michelle, I'm trying to remember, she had those internal voices, and she had bands on both wrists where she would like snap them to literally snap herself out of the hooks of those internal voices. And she had a worry stone. Like there's literally like a worry stone, like it can be round or whatever, or a stone that she'd carry, and she would sometimes just massage between her hands just to feel it between her hands, to pull her out of the voices, to pull her out of her head when she was manic. And she also had a favorite necklace that she would sort of like stroke or sort of like hold on to remind herself that she's like physical, that she's not the voices in her head. So it was really, you know, she's just a beautiful human being too. Like this is the other thing, the depth and the intelligence, because she was dealing with this, caused her to experience such a variety of constant emotional barrages and avalanches that she had to deal with and, you know, brace for impact kind of thing. You know, such a beautiful and strong individual, and truly inspiring in terms of sharing like how honest she was about, it was like literally the first thing that came out of her mouth was like, "Hi, I'm Michelle, I'm schizophrenic." Like, oh, okay. You know, like that kind of test is like, okay, is this dude gonna freak out, or is he gonna be like, you know, cool and be able to chill with me, you know, kind of thing. And I was like, oh, okay, what does that mean? You know, what does that mean to you? Like, what exactly is going on? And she sort of like was, you know, deer in the headlights, or she's like, oh, you know, and she's like literally like, oh, you're not freaking out. I'm going, why would I? He's like, oh, okay, all right. You know, she's sort of like, okay, game on. And you know, the physical stuff for her was really, really big. She swam, she ran, she did a lot of physical stuff. She didn't like working out because she sometimes had trouble being in one place. So that was why she swam and why she ran, so that she could feel her body. Looking at some of the spaces inside for her, and again, you know, I'm paraphrasing because this was her experience and this was a while ago. But she could always feel in her body when a voice was getting loud. And this is sort of like the biggest indicator that she needed to do something. And she would often get up and sit back down. So April, when you said like, you know, one of the simplest things is to literally get up and look around, that's literally what she did. There was a space where we sat that was around a staircase with, you know, a railing, and she get and she and our friends, we'd sit in this big huge couch, and if she had a moment of panic or anxiety when the voices were getting loud because we were talking about something really sensitive, or she just had a really stressful day, she'd get up and she'd walk around the square a couple times and focus on her feet. Years later, of course, I learned Bagua, which is all about listening to your feet. I'm going, you know, she was onto something long before I ever realized there was something about the feet. And to go back to what you're also saying, April, about getting up and looking left, right. So I in the chat here, I wrote EMDR. That's eye movement desensitization response. And it's an actual therapy that is literally about walking and looking left and right. Now, the physiological reason why, the actual physical reason why this is a thing is because what happens when you move your eyes left and right is that you actually pull blood up into your brain. Instead of it getting stuck and caught back here near the amygdala and the reptilian brain, it actually gets pulled all the way through to the front of the face, to the front of the brain, and it helps balance out the blood flow in the brain instead of it all being focused in the reptilian brain. And this is actually something that is everywhere in the Qigong set that I teach, the 8 Pieces of Brocade. Anyone can go and look the 8 Pieces of Brocade up. I have a YouTube channel. It's everywhere online. It's a really, really old Qigong set. And literally, when you're lifting your hands up and you're looking left and right, or you're drawing the bow left and right and you're looking, or even Wise Owl looks around, you're just, you know, even sitting where you're looking and you're looking over your shoulder and you're turning your head and you're looking with your eyes, what you're doing is you're stretching any tension in your neck open, any tension in the reptilian brain, in the amygdala. You're allowing that space to open. You're pulling on all the fascia and all the tendons, and just looking with your eyes will help rebalance the blood flow in your brain. Very, very subtle thing, but very, very potent. And EMDR was literally stumbled upon by a neuropsychologist, a neurologist, who was having a panic attack, and she went for a walk, and she realized she could feel her body relax the more she looked, the more she walked, and the more she looked left and right down her street as she walked down her street. And I went, it's one of those things that I researched years and like decades ago when I first heard about it. I'm going, oh yeah, this is like everywhere in the APs of brocade. Any physical discipline that you can do will help you bring you into the present moment, will help you balance out your body, will help. Jogging and swimming were really big for my friend Michelle, because the adrenaline, the endorphins would flush her system and flush through her nervous system and cause her to be relaxed for hours afterwards. So she's very, very, very religious about her swimming and her jogging, and sometimes biking. So those are like, two main things. And again, going back to the Qigong, standing stick Qigong is super, super potent, because what it does when you're doing standing stick and you're holding a static posture, what you end up doing is you end up stressing your nervous system out by holding a static posture through the physical exertion, and you begin to normalize it. You train and you condition your nervous system out to get used to being under stress, so that it becomes easier and easier for your nervous system to deal with stress. And I have seen interviews with masters in China who have actually used standing stick Qigong to cure people of schizophrenia. But it takes time. It just takes time. Yeah, the accepting the thoughts, that's a process, that's a practice. What April said, what Caesar said, you have spoken on this, right, Caesar? Or am I just remembering your last? Okay, all right. Tired brain here, long day. I'm just going, right. Okay, brain's working, excellent. Yeah, find something that works for you. Again, simple things, like especially, as my friend Michelle, like she had that necklace, that pendant, or she had the little bands on her arms where she'd use, and simple physical rituals that you can use to counterbalance the weight of the voices and the anxiety or the fear that you feel, to change that feeling, to counterbalance that, to create momentum, to counterbalance that, I feel is probably your best course of action, your most potential for best course of action, because there's a lot there. And the adaptogens, if you have access to them, my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And the amazing part that I actually found is in between all these, whatever 30, 40 voices, internal voices, and I'm assuming it's a he, so I'm going to address them as a he. They do have the awareness that they're voices. Because I'm assuming that if there was a schizophrenic that was completely identified with their voice, they would not even have the separation. And Eckhart showed that, I think during group meditation, or I cannot remember, Eckhart showed, like, normally for humans that are identified, consciousness is one, this is thoughts, consciousness is one with thoughts. And that is where the descent of the divine, right? We say that the divine has fallen because consciousness has become one with thought. And people who are awakening, the consciousness is separated, where we can watch our thoughts. And that's what Caesar and Jillian, April, and Kelly were saying, is at least they are aware that they are voices. So these are the techniques of getting into your body. So the main thing, the anchor for the thoughts, is getting deeper into the body. I use sound meditation, which is from Sacred Acoustics. I do find it beneficial. It brings me into the body. along with the Qigong. The other thing I would think is earth. Like, do you walk barefoot on grass and barefoot on uh, like dirt, right? Like either if you have a beach where you are, can you walk barefoot on the soil? I mean, the beach. That would help. Like your earth element, like in India, they say, right, you're made of 5 elements: earth, wind, fire. And when you're up in your mental activity, then there's too much fire. So you have to bring in the earth elements. So the more you can take a clay bath, right? Apply clay to your body and let it dry up. You were going to say something, Kelly?
Yeah, also Epsom salts.
Epsom salt bath.
Not exactly sure where this individual lives, but if they have access to Epsom salts are really, really, really good. Being in water in general is really, really good for the nervous system. But yeah, your clay,
It's perfect, right?
Yep.
So you have to balance the other elements. So you have too much fire, right? So you need to, if you have a water bath, then or you swim, then that'll balance out the water element. Earth is dirt, like embalm yourself with clay, like a mask, full body mask, or you can do pottery that's clay. You can walk on dirt that's anything that's grounding, right? So that'll bring the earth element. Drinking mushroom, chaga mushroom, and reishi is very earthy tones. So that's another earthing. I think they are adaptogens as well. So build up immunity. Eileen, you didn't speak to his condition. Did you have any suggestions or solutions? Thank you.
I do. This actually runs in my family. And so I'm glad that this came up. I'm going to share this with a few family members afterwards. And before I say what I was going to say, I wanted to add, because he had commented when you were speaking about the person that you knew, Kelly, with the necklace. He said, I like that example. I sometimes grab my Buddha necklace to remind that I'm a pleasant human being and what I experienced in life before I had symptoms in college. And then he also added that he's in Rhode Island, because that was something that you guys had asked. The things that came up for me, which wish we'd had this conversation a whole lot sooner. Never thought to really have that conversation here, and that's kind of silly, but is Eckhart Tolle talks about like your sense perceptions, which you guys brought up a lot of things, but I think that's extremely important, because feeling things is important, but it's the same way, like if you were to have like a panic attack and they were to, people will tell you like, what can you feel? Like, is there something you can feel? My son used to feel like fleece, like a piece of fleece. What can you feel? What can you see? So making like even like a list of like an affirmation that you could say when that's happening. Like, what could you see? What can you feel? What can you hear? It's almost like trial and error, trying things to see what it is that's gonna work for you. Like for my son, he's not schizophrenic, but he has other things going on. It was feel, like that's what worked for him. But like some people, it might work better if it's something that's sound related, or something that they can see as a reminder, something that's available to them. And another thing that came up for me is something that works for myself, not with this, but for other things, is a gratitude practice. And so when things like that are happening, finding even the silliest things that you are grateful for, was telling a friend the other day, I was like, we're all grateful for indoor plumbing, right? Like just finding things to be grateful for so that you have that like feeling of, you know, gratitude and joy. And sometimes that can kind of pull you out of, I don't know if it'll work in this particular case, but it'll kind of pull you out of whatever it is that's going on at the moment. That's kind of what came up for me.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, but I definitely will be sharing this.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Actually, Kim Eng Eckhart's wife has a meditation CD. You can download it. Probably it's available as a download. It is called Meditations on a New Earth. And one of them is the sense perceptions, like what are you hearing? Exactly what a meditation on sense perceptions. She has a meditation on pain body. She has a breath meditation. Like it goes one meditation after another, right? Sound meditation. So she just walks you through the meditation. So that would be a good way to do the meditation on sense perceptions. We don't have any more questions online live right now, right, Eileen?
No more questions, just a lot of chatter and sharing. So that's good. But I know we have some from last week still.
Thank you. So Aditi had asked 2 questions. One was, why do humans become anxious most of the time? April, did you want to start with this question? Why do humans become anxious? And then she had a second question, which is, what exactly is pain body? We posted a lot on the Facebook group about pain body, but both questions. Thank you.
Yeah. So one last thing on the last schizophrenic. I don't watch a whole lot of TV, and I don't actually watch a lot of movies either. I'm kind of bad at, I love kid movies. Moana is like my favorite movie ever. So yeah, but I did watch a movie about 6 months ago, and I found this movie phenomenal. It was called Beautiful Mind. Beautiful Minds. And it was of a professor that had schizophrenia, but for the longest time he was identified with it. So he did not know the difference. But the story itself, I think anybody should watch that movie. It was just a phenomenal movie, and it was phenomenal as far as it just put this new element on it, because we have such a stigma on, if you have any type of mental illness, there's something wrong with you. And this totally switched that. It was a beautiful story. This is a beautiful person. They just happen to have this thing going on. But the guy won a Nobel Prize. It's such an awesome movie. So if you can, I would watch that. I just love that movie. And like I said, I don't watch a lot of movies or TV. And then as far as this question goes, this question, I really just feel like we just opened Pandora's box. Like we could go, Poonam, seriously, we could go so many ways with this and talk forever and ever and ever on this. So in efforts to try to keep it, I'm going to start out with this part of it. We are anxious. Oh gosh, I just think we could go so many ways. One, again, we're going to go back to the initial. We are separated from source. So we are not good enough. One, we're going to go back to our core beliefs. We're going to go back to the fact that we don't believe in ourselves. We believe that we are flawed. And then we go from that point to, again, our Bible being altered, our religions being altered, our conditioning that we're not good enough, we're not doing enough, and our school systems where we all need to get our gold stars. We get papers full of red ink. And again, that all these things I'm speaking of right now are related to the pain body. The pain body, in essence, is you are not good enough. You are flawed. Something's wrong with you. You're not enough. And your pain body holds all your beliefs, thoughts about not being good enough in some way, form, or another, not measuring up. So, like I said, I think we've opened Pandora's box, but that's where not being anxious, we can move on from not measuring up, not being good enough, to also projecting into the future. We're worried about what's going to happen. We're more worried about what's going to happen than being in the present moment of now, based off of what happened in the past, because we have to protect. We can't let that happen again. We're scared. So that's where I'm like, oh, we could go on forever. So I'm going to say we're going to start with, we are afraid of never being good enough. And then we project that into the future. And then all of that fear, all of that not being good enough is what creates the pain body. And I'm going to let other people talk so that we don't, so we get a rounded view, right?
A rounded view.
We're going to get the 360 view here. Yeah.
Thank you so much, April. When you brought up, I don't watch too much television and too many movies, I almost thought that you channeled what I was about to tell the schizophrenic questioner, because that's what I was going to advise them to not participate, right? Because once we watch like some kind of social drama that has all that kind of fearful thinking, I mean, what is the news? News is completely like saturated with fear, right? And goes back to, ties into the anxious question. So what is the collective mind of the masses, right? Oh, this is happening in Syria, and this is happening in Africa, and children are being taken away, and this is happening in Russia, or this is happening in Middle East. Like everything is very, very fearful. So withdraw yourself. The more you can withdraw yourself from the collective mind, knowing that these are just collective thought patterns, right? Anxiety is just a collective thought pattern, a conditioned pattern. And the more I withdraw from any anxious, anxiety-driven speech, right? And if anybody's watched Fox News, there's this guy, Tucker Carlson, right? I mean, look at how he twists, like you'd see him watch a video clip and then look at him twist it into such a fearful, and this is what our previous president was doing too, right? Fear mongering. Like that's what they do, is feed the fear, so that you go, oh my God, I need to have this person that's going to be my savior, right? Instead of being, no, my connection is to source.
Yeah, that's why I watch a lot of children's movies. I'm all for the kids, kids cartoons, but you're right. And a lot of people with the schizophrenia do tend to have the so-called conspiracy theories, which are rooted in fear, right? So yes, that's it. And then it just perpetuates all the time, which leads right into this question of this, why are humans anxious? Well, here's another reason. We are fed to be anxious. We are conditioned to be afraid. Now, are there some things that we should not be afraid of? Sure, you should not walk out in front of the bus. You should not. But everything is, don't do that. My mother used to call me and say, don't go to the store. And if you go to the store, you have to lock your doors. And I'm like, Mom, I'm going to be fine. Like my children, I drive them insane because I refuse to live in fear. I just refuse. And they're like, Mom, you got to lock all your doors and you got to, I'm like, why? I got Archangel Michael out there in front of it. I'm going. They're like, Mom, your angel can't save you. I'm like, yes, it can, because I have that faith. I have that belief that I am whole, that I'm okay. I refuse to have this belief of fear. So that's another part of it too. That's right. So we could keep going. Like I legitly refuse to live my life in fear. I can't be aligned and be in fear.
Yes.
Those two don't go together. They don't,
Yes.
So I'll stop because I'll keep.
The fear of, oh, my car will be lost, or my something else would harm me. And right now with the pandemic, all the more like fearful, right, of going out. I mean, just do what you need to do, take your precautions, and you'll be fine, right? Thank you, April. Jillian, did you want to talk about this interesting question?
I actually agree with a lot of what April was saying. That was kind of my initial thought. I also feel like when you're experiencing, whether it's physical pain or mental, that you're at dis-ease somewhere, emotionally, mentally, and that can manifest in different ways. And I don't know a lot about different mental aspects, but I feel like anxiety could be expressed from those fears, from those emotions, and that could be a way that it manifests out. But I don't have a whole lot to add other than what April said. I think it covered a lot of it.
Thank you, Jillian. Kelly, did you want to say something about the why are humans anxious most of the time?
Sure.
Thank you.
I agree with, again, a lot of what April said and Jillian said. Yeah, this is a huge topic that we could just talk and talk and talk about. There's the conditioning, the societal, cultural conditioning, the realities that we live in a society and a culture that's based in fear, and that wants us to be in fear because it's easiest to convince us to do things when we are in fear and when we're not grounded. I come from a political family, so there's, things I could talk about from that perspective that just, I've become very jaded and very cynical about a lot of things over the years, having, the backroom deals explained to me for like 20, 30 odd years. We are conditioned until we stop and see the conditioning, until we stop and see our fears, until we stop and begin to observe our minds and observe the patterns and stop and end the patterns. We are born into this illusion. We are born into a three-dimensional, five senses illusion that tells us that that is all we are. And that the only way to connect through source is to give our power away to some other individual in special clothes, in a special building, to achieve a certain connection that is then filtered through that other person's perception of reality. When we are, in fact, the pinnacle of creation, having a three-dimensional experience through our five senses. And when we wake up to what is beyond our five senses, then we begin to feel and see the patterns even more, and we can dig through things even more, and we can give ourselves an even clearer perspective on the reality of why. Anxiety is a symptom. Anxiety is a symptom of the programming and conditioning the things that we learn. Anxiety is always learned. Sometimes it is inborn when you have, individuals who, when the genetic energy is so strong that people are born predisposed. And again, being very sort of roundabout, but I'm someone that believes everything really is energy from everything that I've experienced from a very young age. There is no other reality for me other than that everything is energy. So if you step back and listen and let yourself feel, you can begin to understand the patterns and see how the conditioning really is present and is the seeds of all of the conditioned, limited ego, fear-based anxiety. And yeah, everything that was already said on the pain body. The pain body is the body of pain caused by our accumulated trauma from this lifetime, and as I believe in reincarnation and past lives, past lifetimes, and also parallel threads of reality and the multidimensional aspects of reality that we are dealing with on a regular basis. And again, that's my perspective and that's my opinion on the subject. That's my simplest breakdown of what the pain body is. The pain body is our information. The pain body is literally our accumulated information. There we go. All the consonants working. Brain is working. It's all of our information that we've accumulated over this lifetime. And it's, when we are striving to refine ourselves and to be better versions of ourselves, to feel beyond the patterning and the anxiety, the pain body comes up because our ego and our fears and our shadow and our reptilian brain use the pain to hijack us and throw us under the bus, because our pain body or our shadow likes where it is. That comfort level, that energy, that feeling of like, you don't want to look there because it's not shiny enough. There are no cookies over there. We got all the cookies over here. Come and have cookies, The pain body is our accumulated information. That's why looking at it is so important. That's why looking at it will cause you to understand how to be present. Because when you step back into that observation and give yourself that gift of courage to look at your pain body, you learn how much bigger you really are. And how your pain and your anxiety is actually only a fraction of who you really are. My 2 cents.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I could pull up probably the description of the pain body of what Eckhart actually says in the book, but I'll summarize it. It's like when we experience trauma, there is a release of pain. And if we didn't process the pain, like allow our consciousness to experience the pain completely, then it gets stored in our body, physically gets stored in our body. And Kim-Ing explains it like, some people have a knot in the shoulder, or they can be a knot in the legs, like you're feeling knots in the body. And that's why Qigong is so, yoga and Qigong are so helpful, because they take you inside your body. And so you're inhabiting your body and looking at all those pain sections. So any negative emotion that's not fully faced. And that's why the practice here with Eckhart is to allow your presence, or allow that alignment with inner beingness, to completely experience the emotion of this moment, whatever it is. If it is anger, completely, like say there's anger within me, let me experience, sit with it, sit with the anger, right? We are part of the collective. So our shadow, we cannot say, oh, I'm spiritual, I'm never going to be angry, and then suppress it. That doesn't work. We experience each and every emotion that's in us, right? We cannot say the negative does not exist within us, but we can experience it with our alignment with inner beingness. So one of the things before I moved to Eileen and then Caesar, one beautiful way of Abraham Hicks, the way she explains these, what I imagine it to be is thought blocks. So they can be a thought block of Republicans. So she calls it a disc of all Republicans, disc of all Democrats. Then there's disc of all these unhappy people, right? That they think that the victim identity is, my life is going to be unhappy. That's beautiful. A disc of people that feel that they're always going to be sickly, right? The hypochondriac, they're always going from one disease state to another disease state. Then there's going to be this disc of anxious people, right? So she says, what disc are you on? Are you under the influence of source? Or are you not under there are only two kinds of people. One is under the influence of source or not under the influence of source. So what is our choice? So we have a choice of what disc to be on, right? And this is all vibrational energy. Do we want to be at the low frequency of anxiety and sadness and victim identity so that it feeds thoughts, feed emotions, and we continue that? Or do we want to raise our vibrational frequency and then we are in gratitude? We are experiencing the loving kindness. I mean, Caesar pours out, I mean, lines and lines of loving words for everything that we do, right? Like with the Facebook live Q&A, sometimes he responds to the post. There is so much love in Louise is the same way. So are we on that high flying disc or are we on the low flying disc? It's our choice, right? And these are conditioned patterns for thousands of years. I mean, we've had Jesus, we've had Buddha, we've had maybe 20,000 years ago, there was some spiritual teacher at 20,000 years ago saying the same thing, right? Human, get into alignment with your inner beingness. So thank you, Kelly. Thank you for that. Eileen, did you want to say something about anxiety? Why are humans anxious?
The only part that I was going to say, and I think that April may have said it in the beginning, was that they're not truly being in the present moment. It's that, like, projecting into the future. It's the only way anxiety can exist, because if you're truly in this present moment that you're in and not, expectations or what do they call that? Striving, all of that like stuff just causes anxiety. And I know that from personal experience. So just they obviously don't have a presence practice, and that's something that more people need to have.
And the presence practice is meditation, inner body meditation, breath work, do your breath work, commune with nature. Some kinds of music can bring you stillness.
Yep.
So
Gratitude practice, all of it.
thank you. And you've overcome it, right? You used to have anxiety and now.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I don't get that at all anymore. Well, maybe that one night at our group meditation. Maybe that night. But that worked out very well once I did get into the present moment. So it's still working out well weeks later too. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Caesar, you want to wrap it up? It's getting late, so.
Sure. It was beautiful, Eileen. Took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, it's a lack of presence for sure. And I think a good way to practice to combat the anxiety would be, as Eckhart says, to embrace it. And the emotion is there as anxiety. I guess you could call that an emotion, I guess, is to quickly determine where the thought came from, past or future. We know it wasn't out of the present moment that it arose. And once you are aware that it wasn't presence that entertained or brought on the anxiety, that actually is presence itself. So that would be a good practice. And as far as the pain body goes, I really appreciated your explanation on that, and how the emotions are used as our guidance system to let us know our state of consciousness, where we're at. It's almost like a course correction if you can address it, and you address it by turning inward and allowing the emotion to be there, and giving it space, creating space by fully embracing and accepting it. And then in a sense, the pain body is a conjunction of trapped energy. And when you are able, when the emotion arises, it is an opportunity to dissolve it into the light of consciousness, by simply fully accepting it and embracing it. And then it must dissolve into the light of consciousness at that point. And that's one less pocket of resistance that you carry around in this physical form with you. And in a sense, and in many ways, you become lighter as a result of that. So that's the short answer, as Kelly would say. But everybody touched on that. Absolutely beautiful. And it's great advice all the way around the board.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Caesar. And what I understood from medical medium Anthony William in one of his Facebook lives, he was saying that when we experience trauma, like a broken relationship, like a partner leaving, or death in the family, or any kind of trauma, there is excess of adrenaline that is released from the body, right? And the body is not able to process. It should go out, either it should be like a little bit of adrenaline and then leave into the air, right? But we are not able to process it. And so it gets stored as toxic. It gets stored in the body and it becomes toxic. And I went, oh, that is what is the pain body. It's just adrenaline, stored adrenaline that's gone toxic. So cleansing helps. I have noticed, like when I drink celery juice, I can just feel the, Kelly can explain it maybe better. There's like a fluidity in the cells. Like I can feel looseness in every cell of my body. I can just feel this, that I'm a jello, right? It's become so alkaline that my whole body is just jello, right? Every cell is very jello. You want to explain it, Kelly? I think Qigong does that too, right?
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
Alkalize your body.
Well, one of the things Qigong does is it oxygenates your body tremendously, and it helps nutrients get through balance throughout the entire body and all of your systems. So, and I'm a huge fan of celery juice, and I eat celery by the bushel, basically. And yeah, that lightness is the water, and the way that water gets turned into oxygen inside the bloodstream, and the way your body uses the minerals in the celery juice, in the natural food in the celery. And yeah, that lightness in terms of the relaxation inside the body from it being nourished properly and supported properly and supported energetically properly. Same, when I juice, when I have a couple of days when I juice, it's like, wow, what a difference. Or when I have, when I sit down and I eat a lot of celery, my body does feel very much more relaxed. And that's the same thing. It's not exactly the same feeling as doing Qigong, but there's a definite substantial parallel there.
Thank you. So today we recommended like so many methods, right? Modalities of healing. They can be food, they can be Qigong, they can be yoga. There's different kinds of meditation. So April did have a question, but Caesar says our food intake is as important as anything else regarding our overall well-being. Yes, for enhancement of your spiritual practice, what we are eating is really, really important. But we'll get into it again. April, I'm hoping that you will be here next week and we can start on the question that you discussed before about loved ones here and on the other side.
Oh. With the talk that we had before we
Yes.
started today?
But we'll start it next week, okay?
Sure.
Since we are out of time and it's getting late for Eileen and probably Jillian and April and Caesar. So very much humbled by everyone being here. I am grateful beyond words, eternally grateful that everyone is here and the people online that have posted questions and actually responded to the questions. So beautiful energy, many blessings. Have a fantastic day. And Jillian, welcome. And thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Appreciate it. Bye. Have a good night.